Tom, I was going to start with, first of all, what happened at the investigation or the inquiry into the Emergencies Act, but I did want to just ask you one thing, because I know this is not on the list, but I'm kind of reading an interesting tweet. So Elon Musk is now the official owner of Twitter, and he tweeted, and the big question now is, will he let Trump back on? Will Trump still be banned from Twitter? He tweeted today, if I had $1 for every time someone asked me if Trump is coming back on this platform, Twitter would be minting money. So he has not apparently made a decision. I'm just wondering what you think about all this.
Well, first of all, I think it was so shameful what the same Elon Musk did over the weekend about Paul Pelosi's attack. I mean, this man was hit over the head with a hammer by an intruder in his house, and Musk was retweeting absolutely Looney Tunes conspiracy theories. Oh, this is just the left wing trying to bring pity on itself. Maybe he was doing something really bad with that young man in his house. I mean, this is crazy stuff written on a website of a supposed newspaper that doesn't even exist. And Elon Musk is just batty enough, we won't use the full Halloween word, crazy, to repeat it. And this guy is an absolute menace to society.
It later deleted, by the way. I guess he got called out, and it has been deleted since. But still, that's the point.
It doesn't bode well for the future.
We are going to talk more about this later, by the way, with Carmi Levy. All right, let's get into the meat and potato stuff, Tom. So first of all, at the inquiry today, this is number 2 day for the former police chief, Peter Sloly. And a lot more finger-pointing today under cross-examination, right?
Well, it was going to be a lot tougher because, of course, last week he was just being asked general questions. He was allowed to say anything he wanted. One of my favorite exchanges from Friday was, after it became clear that he was absolutely not in control of anything, and he had allowed this thing to grow completely out of control because he didn't know how to read the information he had been given. They sort of wanted to give him a bit of an out, and they said, well, have you learned anything, since then? Would you do something differently? And the only answer he could sputter was that he had read some articles about how important it is for people who have senior decision-making roles to make sure that they get adequate sleep. I'm sort of going, okay, this is why this guy got fired in the middle of the convoy protest. Today it actually got worse, believe it or not, because every time, and on a human level, you really do actually feel quite sorry for the guy, because you're saying, how did he possibly get that job? How is it possible that there was some sort of a community group? See, what they do in large Ontario towns, they have something, they'll call it a police board, and it'll be community groups, and it'll be individuals and different groups, whatnot, and they'll come together and they'll say what their priorities are, and they'll hire somebody that reflects them, even if that person doesn't know anything about how to deal with this type of crisis. And it became increasingly clear that the thing became totally out of control because he didn't know what he was doing.
Look, I don't know. Again, I think I asked you this when we started. At the end of the day, I know this is kind of built into the whole legal framework here. You need to have a follow-up when the Emergencies Act is declared. I'm just wondering at the end of all this, for all the people made to look bad or not to have done their job in this, what are we going to learn?
Well, the fun part is going to be, of course, when we get to listen to the convoy organizers. And if we're really lucky, they'll share some of their favorite conspiracy theories with us. And they'll have to repeat under oath what they already said, that they were there to bring down the government. They weren't going to leave until the government was replaced, and had removed all the safety precautions during the pandemic. Things like, wearing a mask when you're on an airplane. Who knew that was a conspiracy to take away people's freedom? So, they're going to get to share their stuff. I think that's going to be hours and hours of entertainment.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, I had to turn off my mic for a second. We just had our first Halloweeners here, trick-or-treaters. So the doorbell was ringing. There was mayhem for a bit. So I caught most of that, but I was like, okay. I want to talk about...
go out until it got dark.
I know, right? They were little ones, so I'll try to give that that excuse for them. Speaking of chaos, though, can we talk a little bit about this meeting today? Well, I don't know if it was chaotic or not. Do we know what has come of the meeting with Dominic Anglade?
The information I have been given on background is that things are starting to settle down. What Dominic Anglade did is held out an olive branch to Mulcair and Nichols, and looks like they're going to have a chance to everybody climb down from this thing. Anglade's press release was very carefully crafted and worded, saying it had gone too far. She's going to keep the door open. I have every confidence that cooler heads are going to prevail. You know, I was given information last week that this thing had completely gone off the rails, and it was not completely Anglad's fault, to be sure. You know, it takes two to tango, and this was one of them. But I think that sometimes a weekend can bring good counsel, and people are starting to think that, well, maybe the most important thing is to keep the party together. So if all goes well, Nichols will be back in caucus, and they can move on and start taking on the CAC government instead of taking on each other.
How interesting, because you have a totally and completely different take from Jim Meny when we spoke to him earlier. He says January 15th is his money's on that date that Dominic Anglade is gone. I was like, can they even do a leadership review before then? Yeah. So you think quite the opposite.
Yeah, I think that Jim's got, you know, his own views of things, but when you know that you've got a leader who has to face a review in almost exactly a year, it's going to be by the end of November of next year, she's going to have the full fall session, the rather short fall session and the full spring session to strut her stuff and to show what she can do faced with Legault. I mean, you'd have to be pretty short-sighted not to understand that the Parti Québécois had its worst result ever, 14% of the vote and only 3 seats. Québec Solidaire, the vote for Gabrielle Nadeau-Dubois was actually down from that for Manon Massé in the 2018 campaign. So, I mean, this is the reality of facing François Legault's massive steamroller. I mean, this guy is, just a political juggernaut, and it's been very tough on the other parties. And anybody who thinks that the Liberals would have done just so much better with another leader doesn't know too much about politics. And saying that she's going to be gone by January, I'm not sure what Jim has as information. The information that I have is that she's going to be fine with her caucus, and there will be a little bit of pushback. There are going to be people out there rattling the cage a little bit, but they don't have anybody to put up against her so far.
I keep hearing, though, Jim, we talked to other people suggesting that, first of all, we know, of course, her chief organizer has stepped down. That's never a good sign. And a lot of those people who have been Liberals for years and years seem to have gotten off or about to get off this boat as well. So that can't bode well for her, though.
Well, it would have been really bad for her if she had not gotten rid of her chief organizer. This is the guy whose number one job was to make sure you have what are commonly referred to as candidates. And he forgot to check that off his list. And they started this campaign. They didn't even have their full slate of candidates. So I don't think, fair enough. I mean, she's ultimately the boss of the party. And I guess you could put everything, including that, on her doorstep. But I think it would have shown weak leadership if he had stayed for one day longer. I think that's the right way to look at that one. With regard to people who are talking on background, look, this is the thing about politics. Yeah. The Liberal Party is a party of power. They're used to being in power, and they're not used to getting 21 seats. The last time they did this badly was when Claude Ryan was the leader, and they really sunk down before Bourassa came back. But there's a core of support there that allowed them to remain official opposition. And, she still did manage to win, several seats off Island, South Shore, off the west side, and a couple in Laval. And yes, it's shrunk right down because everybody was facing the same François Legault. Will she be gone in January as others are suggesting? I haven't seen anything to suggest that, but I know she's got a heck of a lot of work to do repairing bridges right now.
So I just want to mention one last thing. I was watching this on national news most of the day today. The Ontario government, and I bring this up because we're going to face a situation in Quebec apparently as well. So teachers, there's back-to-work legislation from the Ontario government to force teachers to stay on the job. But I believe, Tom, they said they're going to strike Friday anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're bringing in the notwithstanding clause against their teachers, which is interesting because you would have never thought after everything we had heard about how horrible it was that Quebec did just that, especially with the tut-tutting from the Ontario media. I'm anxious to see how they react to Doug Ford using the notwithstanding clause because the Supreme Court has ruled time and again that the right to bargain collectively is guaranteed by the Charter. So they're going to actually try to take that away. It's such a bad faith maneuver by Doug Ford. It's really going to provoke strong backlash because he's not even going after teachers. These are the people who are the teachers' aides, the administrative staff. They're the lowest rung of the ladder. They're very badly paid to begin with. Ontario is a heck of a lot more expensive than Quebec as a place to live and everything else. So I think that Ford is stirring the pot needlessly. He's looking for a fight. He's looking for a fight with people who are going to get a lot of public support, especially by trying to, if he's trying to take away their any right to bargain collectively in 2022, he's going to be in for a fight that he's not expecting. By the way, here in Quebec, we've got one good thing that's happening. We've got Sonia Lebel, who's going to remain in charge of the negotiation process. And that, I think, for Quebecers is a very good thing. She's an outstanding negotiator. She understands the game perfectly. And we are not about to take on the same sort of fight. There's a common front forming right now. The unions are pulling together. But I don't think that Legault is looking for a big battle as he's trying to come up with all of these lines with regard to making sure that people don't suffer because of inflation. He's going to have to do a lot better than what Ford is proposing to do to make sure that people have the ability to fight inflation with a decent salary and decent wage increases.
Well, I would just say Legault could start by just making sure that Quebec teachers aren't the lowest paid teachers in the country.
Good for you, Natasha. Yes, Quebec teachers remain the lowest paid teachers in Canada, and it's shameful, and it's something that is easily fixed. But we're going to see what type of mandate she gets. I have nothing but praise for Sonia Lebel. I think she's one of the strongest ministers in Legault's government, but it also depends on who's going to be making those calls. She does hold the purse strings, but the person who actually makes the ultimate call, of course, is Eric Girard, the finance minister.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we shall see. Going to be interesting. Nice to see some pushback in Ontario, against from teachers against the government.
Yeah,
never thought you'd see the notwithstanding clause used anywhere else. Tom, thanks so much.
Happy Halloween.
Take care.
Yeah, happy Halloween.